Hi, welcome to Familiar Circle, where we provide insights to everyday queries. In this video, I'll be showing you how to calculate the range on a set of values. So what is the range? What is range? What do we mean by a range? The range is essentially the difference between the highest or the largest and the lowest or the smallest value in a data set. So we're going to look at an example to see how this is calculated. On the screen here we have some scores. You can think of them as some exam scores for 10 students in a class. So the first one there is 40 and we have the last one there being 65, but they're all not in order, so they're not sorted. So in order to calculate the range on this, we need to find the highest value or the highest score and the lowest score. Now to do that, we can use Excel to calculate the highest or to find the highest score. So we can do something like equals, and it would be max. So that would be for the highest. So max, and then we double click that, and then we just drag from the top to the bottom, and then we finish that off with a closing bracket and hit enter. And now we can see that the maximum score here is 95. So let's call this max. So max. And to calculate the minimum score, we repeat the same thing. This time around we use min. So min, and then we double click that, and then we drag from the top to the bottom, and then close that off with a bracket and hit enter. And we have 28 being the minimum. So then to calculate the range, we simply do maximum minus minimum. So we can do equals cell B13 minus cell B14 and just hit enter, and we get 67. So 67 is the range for this set of data. Now it's very important to think about the data that you want to calculate the range on. It has to be data for which differences between two data values have meanings. In statistics, we refer to these kinds of data as interval data. So for example, we can see that there is a meaning between the student who had 95, so that's student 2, in terms of difference between the score of the student who had 95 and the one who had 28, so that's student 7. So we can see that student 2 had 67 more marks than student 7. So that has a meaning in that sense. Now, we cannot calculate the range on data like the names of students. For example, if you look at this, I've named them student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4, all the way to student 10. If you do the range between or the difference between student 1 and 2, it makes no meaning. And we can look at what Excel would do in that regard. So we can do equals, and click the cell A3 minus cell A2. And if we hit enter, it just doesn't mean anything. You know, Excel is reporting a meaningless value. So this makes no meaning. So the data on which we want to calculate the range has to be the kind of data for which you can differences have meanings. We refer to these kinds of data as interval data. Another example of a kind of data on which you can calculate the range will be things like birth dates. So let's look at this. We have the birth dates of these 10 students. Student 1 being born on the 19th of March 2001, and the last one there, student 10, being born on the 26th of November 2000. So we can repeat the same thing. We can calculate the minimum birth date and the maximum birth date, and then look at the difference between both. So let's say min, that would be equals min, and then we open the bracket. So I'm just going to double click that, and in fact let's just do the max first. So max, and then we double click that, and then we just drag from cell B2 down to B11, and we close that off, and it gives us the maximum date to be the 27th of November 2001. I'll just rename that to max. And then we repeat the same thing for min. So we just do equals min, and then we double click that, drag the cell from B2 to B11, and we'll close that off with the closing brackets, hit enter, and we have the minimum date. And then we can calculate the range on this by taking the difference. So the range of these dates would be the difference between the maximum and the minimum. Now this is going to be reported in days. So we can see that there are 479 days in between the student with the lowest birth date and the student with the highest birth date. And now we know that the difference is more than a year because that's reported in days. So we have 365 days in a year, or 366 if it's a leap year. And we know that the difference is just over a year. So this is how you calculate range. Range is essentially the difference between the largest or the highest or the maximum and the smallest or the lowest or the minimum value in a data set. Thank you very much for watching.